Good morning, everybody.
This is Jennifer.
And this is Lorraine. And we are your hosts for the Small Biz Chat. How do you like that kind of podcasting introduction?
There's definitely a distinct difference between when you're doing a live show and a podcast is you've got this repeatable intro that you have.
Absolutely. I have been saying the same thing on my podcast now for more than 15 years.
Yeah. I was going to try to say it. And I was like, no, I'll mess it up.
Welcome to More Than a Few Words, Marketing Conversation for Business Owners. This is your host, Lorraine Ball.
Perfect.
But in all honesty, podcasting it's not a new thing.
No.
I've been doing this for 15 years. It has evolved.
Yeah.
It's gotten way easier to do. And it is something I think that every business owner should be exploring. And even if you're not going to host a podcast, which I do think you should, you need to be thinking about a guesting strategy, because podcasts are a way to reach an interested, engaged, niche audience.
Yeah, anybody that has a show has an audience that is paying attention and listening to their show. So when you can be a guest on someone else's show, you're introducing yourself, your brand, to a whole nother audience that might not even know who you are. So I think finding those podcast shows that potentially are talking to your audience is a great way to get your marketing out there.
And I'm going to say, as a host, if you are going to create a strategy to be on podcasts, you're going to create that list of podcasts, you're going to look for the shows that are out there, you're going to start approaching them. May I suggest that you do not lead with a 3-paragraph introduction of who you are and how great you are and what you're going to do for their show. Yeah. While that may seem important, let me let you in on a secret.
It's not.
Everybody and their brother wants to be on podcasts these days.
Yes.
You want to know how you get noticed? You want to know how you get to the top of the list if you want to be on somebody's podcast? Hey, I listened to your show. I loved this. Here's what I want to talk about. And here's how I'm going to promote it.
Yeah.
I think your show is something my audience would care about. You've got my attention because now you've told me what you want to talk about, but you've also promised to collaborate with me.
Well, you have a show for a reason. You've been doing it for X amount of years and people want to listen to your show. And so you don't really care about somebody's credentials as much to what are you going to talk about, and does my audience even care about that topic? That's the meat of what a good podcast guest is going to do.
Absolutely. It's, can you bring something different? And can you bring a community? And I'm going to say that again, because I think a lot of people miss that. A lot of people hire agencies to get them on podcasts. And while they may get you on a lot of podcasts, there are a lot of podcast hosts who are going to ignore you. Mm-hmm. If the pitch starts with, "Hi, I'm Mary, and I want to introduce you to John," next.
You're being sold.
I know I'm being sold, and I also know that when you come on as a guest, you're not vested because you have paid that person to put you there, so you think that you're doing me a favor, or that because you paid, you have the right. No. So be a good guest. Bring something relevant. Bring your audience. Be prepared. And
put it on your social networks afterwards that you were on the show. What did you talk about? Because that's both parties coming together to serve both purposes. So there's got to be that element. There's certainly also an SEO element of being on shows, and then more than likely you're going to be on their website where they have the podcast, and you're going to be earning those links, which are great, for SEO purposes and being mentioned all over online. But, make it a two-way street.
Absolutely. And the more that you interact and engage with the hosts, and hosts interacting and engage with your guests, and create that visibility online, the more visibility you'll have for the show in general and for your episode.
Yeah, that's a great point. Sometimes people get on podcasts and they don't take a breath
Oh.
and they just ramble forever. And it's like, hey, this is a two-way road here.
Well, and I actually, when I do an interview, I actually have started coaching my guests. Look, I know you're excited about your topic. I want to give you the best show, but I also want to create some social shares afterwards. And I need 1 minute sound bites. I need you to pause. I need you to let me ask you the next question.
Mm-hmm.
This is not an 8 minute commercial for your brand.
That's such a good point. I see people do that sometimes on podcasts. And it's like, would you like we want that host. We want to listen to what they have to say.
Absolutely. And it is that two-way street. But let's turn it around now. So you've been guesting for a while, you kind of see how this works. You should have a podcast.
Yeah.
And as niche as you think your business is, there's an audience. No, you may not get 5,000 downloads a month for your how to grow an organic garden in Arizona. But you know what? The people that listen really want to know. And so those niche topics can be fabulous.
And don't be afraid to turn on the camera and make it more than just audio.
Mm-hmm.
There should be a video portion to that, which ends up being the long form video that you see here, but also can be reels and all kinds of different ways to kind of, mix that up into your marketing.
Absolutely. I have to admit, I love audio podcasts. I put my headset in and I go walking, I go to the gym. But I recognize that there is an audience for video. And so shoot both. You don't even have to release them on the same schedule.
Yeah.
The other thing that I want you to think about is if you're going to do a podcast, I forget how many millions of podcasts are out there.
Yeah.
Only about 25% of all the podcasts that are out there are active.
Wow.
The vast majority are not.
Because they give up.
Because people give up. There's pod fade. And so if you're going to do this, my recommendation is get a few episodes in the can, really see how long it takes you to get those first few done. Now you know how often you're going to release episodes.
I think that's because people want this like instant gratification from podcasting, and podcasting is something that you might do a podcast for a year before you see any benefit from it. And then there's not this quote unquote direct attribution, but guys, there isn't that in any marketing. So, I mean, you have to do it. And I think the other thing people are like, well, what am I going to talk about? We have a client that is a janitorial service and he does a podcast and it does so well on social media. People love seeing those reels and, you got to have your niche.
Absolutely. And that's the thing that I honestly have really struggled with is I have broad-based skills. I can talk about soup to nuts in marketing.
Yeah.
And the show has always been about that, but I don't really have as tight a core audience because I don't stay on a single topic. And the shows that really kind of go, this is a show for mompreneurs. That kind of really niche actually does better. Now, I'm going to make some changes in my show, but I'm not going to completely
I like that because marketing is still a niche. At least you're not coming on there and just talking about the Tuesday weather.
No. So if you're thinking about starting a podcast, there's going to be a link in the show notes to two of the tools that I really like, Podmatch and Podbean. I get most of my guests from Podmatch. I get most of my guesting opportunities for Podmatch.
Yeah.
And Podbean is what I've used to host. And yes, there are a million hosting platforms out there. It's idiot proof. I know there are others, but Podbean for me has just been idiot proof.
I would say either one of us can do a lot of advising on the tools and what you need in order to get your podcast out there. So.
Absolutely. All right, guys. If you know what, when you're done here, head over to Spotify or iTunes, look for Elevated Marketing Solutions.
Yep, elevatemarketing.podcast.
And look for More Than a Few Words.
Bye now.
Bye now.